Monday, I attended a press conference with sacked Qantas workers and their union, the Transport Workers Union, following the federal court handing down a decision that will go down in history as a landmark victory for working people. After Qantas was found to have legally sacked over 1,700 workers in 2020, the court utilised 3 workers' circumstances as test cases for how impacted workers could be compensated. The result on Monday was that these 3 workers would share in $170,000 in compensation. The next step is for a decision on the global figure for compensation for the remaining sacked workers. The union expects that this number will be over 100 million and that economic penalties for Qantas could well exceed a further 100 million. Members will recall me raising this matter and updating the House several times over the last 4 years, and I think it is important that this House notes the final chapter and the significance of this victory for working people. Let me remind the House of the details. Back in 2020, Qantas capriciously sacked over 1,700 ground workers to prevent them from undertaking industrial disputation. This was done under the cover of COVID, where Qantas ended up receiving billions of dollars of taxpayer money. The money was specifically given by the people of Australia to keep people employed and keep the airline running. Instead, Qantas did the opposite and sacked people. It is hard to imagine a more reprehensible example of corporate thuggery by an airline that trades on being the national carrier and the spirit of Australia. Qantas displayed no corporate responsibility and simply attempted to de-unionise the workforce and increase profit at the expense of their employees and the Australian taxpayer. The discarded workers treasured their employment with Qantas, and many of them had been working for the company their whole lives and were utterly devastated. With the support of their union, the TWU, they bravely fought back and never took a backward step. After several hearings with the federal court and finally the High Court, with multiple appeals by Qantas along the way, the High Court finally confirmed that the decision to terminate these workers had, in fact, been illegal. The courts found that Qantas was motivated by a desire to thwart legally protected industrial action and upcoming enterprise bargaining. The decision not only vindicates the workers and their union, but sends a clear message to corporate Australia that an American-style industrial relations regime, whereby corporate giants are permitted to run roughshod over their workers in a bid to de-unionise the workforce, will not be tolerated in Australia. It is also important for people to understand that achieving some sort of justice has taken 4 years. The deliberate protraction of the dispute by Qantas's multiple appeals exacerbated the pain and suffering of these workers. We must ensure that such elongations of pain and suffering to victims are minimised as much as possible. Far too often, we hear of situations where the innocent party's victimisation is compounded by the length it takes for justice to be finally served. This is yet another example. 4 years is far too long. Nevertheless, justice has been served, and the truth is, had it not been for the courage and persistence of these workers and their union, the TWU, intervening on their behalf to even up the power imbalance between a corporate Goliath and ordinary working people, they would not have stood a chance. Mr. Deputy President, this is a classic example of the value of unions. And those that want to come into this House and denigrate the contributions that union makes to this society, Australian society, and the way we differentiate the way we deal with industrial relations and fairness in the workplace, want to think twice. The TWU's case is a classic example of balancing up the imbalance between those who have a monopoly on the employer side, that is a monopoly on capital, versus working people who, without collectivisation, organised by their union, enshrined in the Industrial Relations Act and the Fair Work Act, to allow collective industrial action and organised labour to fight back this country would not be the great country that it is. I commend the TWU and the employees.